Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, ModzvilleUSA here, back with another video. And today we're doing a retro gem install in a Sony PS1. This is the new PS1digital, essentially. New board, very similar install, and pretty much the same thing. It's just now we've got the retro gem, which is a universal board as opposed to different kits for different consoles. So first thing we do is we need to bridge the jumper pads here. So we go C, we go D, and I switch to a much better tip for this, using my more conical-y shaped J tip. So C, D, E, K. Do not forget A. We are doing this with the clock mod. You got to do A as well. That was a hang up for me when installing this. I didn't see that portion. Got to do A too. Chisel tip's not as great for this, but it gets the job done. So now we're removing that serial port here. Now you can do this however you want. If you have a desoldering gun, you can just hit these pins. Hot air, I would definitely recommend introducing some new leaded solder to the pads before hot airing it, just because it's going to make it go by much faster, less heat on the board. I just opted to wick it clean for the most part, but then I ended up using hot air to get it off in the end. So I don't know, I think the most optimal way to do this is probably just add fresh solder, use hot air, get it off the board, and then go ahead and wick the pads once it's out. It's probably the best way to go. Nice and clean. Scrub her down. We need to remove and replace a couple electrolytic caps here. So what worked best for me is, as you can see, I flowed the one off with my iron there, and that was pretty simple. But the best way is, just a bit of hot air, but tin the pads first with leaded. It'll make them come off much faster. You do not want to spend too much time with hot air on electrolytic capacitors. They can pop on you. They can blow up, especially if they're in bad shape. So yeah, be careful with hot air and electrolytic capacitors. Now I have to wick one side and leave the other side intact. So we just put it on flush like this. Push it into the joint, the molten joint there. Just like that. And this last one's a little tricky to get in there. It's pretty tight, but it's not too bad. So you just want to flux it up. Go over the joints again, just to make sure everything's nice and purty. There we go, them some good joints. Scrub it down. And do not forget to remove this little resistor here. We are doing the clock mod. Just give it remove that thing. And now this is our controller board flex here. This one's pretty simple. Shouldn't be too freaky. And same with the PS2 mod with the controller flex. The hardest part with this one is just lining it up, getting some good alignment there. A little tricky. Well, once it's locked in, you just come in, apply some solder, get a nice joint. Clean her up, that's pretty good. And so here we're using the this is the Audio Flex AKM. A little bit more challenging, like tighter pitch than the controller Flex, but totally manageable, not too bad. Most challenging part again is lining it up, and you will see a decent amount of bridging happening. I'm running my iron at I'm using leaded, not going the lead-free route, but iron I try to keep. My rule of thumb for flex cables is keep the temperature as low as possible. Pixel Effects does make some pretty durable flex cables because they're always double-sided, but still, it's too much heat and you start popping pads off of flex cables like butter. 310 is pretty safe. 330 should be fine, but I just generally try to keep it lower. Once you get up in like the 350 range, then it's a little too spicy. So it's a bit more bridging than you may like, but you just kind of have to weigh it out. If you go low temp, you're gonna bridge more, but the flex cable's not gonna have too much heat. It's safer on the flex, but it's just a bit tougher to work with when you're low heat. So just gotta weigh it out. I prioritize not breaking the flex cable from too much heat, and just deal with the bridging. So I wicked it a bit. It was quite a bit of solder on there, and that just would have taken forever. But what I'm doing here, I'm cleaning my tip, going over the pads, cleaning my tip, going over it, and the iron is essentially absorbing the solder. Just wipe it out until we're good. And I just came in with the wick and sped it up a bit. Be careful when you're wicking stuff. You don't want to knock pins. Big ups to today's sponsor, PCBWay. If you're in the market to get some PCBs manufactured, 3D print work done, or CNC machining, PCBWay has you covered. My personal favorite is the retro stuff section under shared projects. If you find a project you like, you can order one directly from the page with the choice of having it assembled as well. The creators of these projects even get a cut from your purchase. Click the link in the description if this interests you. Now, let's get back to the show. Okay, now here, this footage is, it's sad, but I had to keep it in here. So I'm soldering this to the complete wrong side of the flex. Very sexy footage. Do not do this. I'm going to make sure to put some text in there too, saying do not solder this. It is the wrong side of the IC. Oh, but it looks nice, doesn't it? Just watching those joints go in. Sexy joints. So, I feel like I could cut this out and just show you me doing it like proper. But I'm sure I think there'll be more value in having done it wrong and showing me undoing it. So I'm leaving it in. Keeping this footage in. Make fun of me all you want. Wrong side of the IC. Haven't done a PS1digital in many moons. But yeah. It looks nice. It's just totally wrong, unfortunately. So about this point I realized it's the wrong side of the IC. So the idea, you flux the hell out of it when you remove a flex cable like this. You're just going pad at a time, lifting it up. Go slow, be careful. You know, don't force anything, but it pops up, pad at a time, like pulling off a zipper. Pretty much, it's just, it'll all snap out as you go over it with your iron. So I'm clearing the bridging. Likely going to bridge a little bit if you have to remove a flex cable like I did. It's no big deal. Same idea. Flux, clean tip, swipe. Flux, clean tip, swipe it. And here we go. Doing it the right side. It's not as aesthetically pleasing to watch it with the pads all tinned already, but it's totally fine. As long as you don't have any bridges going on, you will be, you should be totally fine. Now, this is intimidating. The pitch on this is small, and this will freak a lot of people out. I remember when I first saw the PS1digital install, I thought it was the craziest thing I've ever seen, and I wanted to try it immediately, but yeah, it could freak you out. It probably should freak you out, but you know, with a bit of experience, like, this isn't that bad. Optics are helpful. I'm using my camcorder to see what I'm doing as I'm shooting this, but you know, microscope, something, at least at the end, even your phone, it's perfectly fine to zoom in and just look at the various angles and make sure you don't have any bridging there, because some of it's tough to spot with the naked eye, some of it's tough to spot at certain angles. So yeah, and the main idea, same with the PS2 one, just kind of my rule of thumb. It's kind of simple, but just where the teeth touch the pins, you want to not see those teeth anymore. There should be like a nice solder joint in its place connecting the flex cable to the pins, but it's generally really easy to get a solid connection with these Pixel Effects flex cables. So at this point, we're putting the gem together, put the nuts in the 3D printed enclosure here, and then probably one at a time is best, because they can pop out. So when you screw it in, you want to have like your thumb or like a finger holding that nut in place until it's totally secure. So I'm screwing it in. Probably knocked the nut out, yeah. So you wanna be holding that nut in with a finger, and then screw it in. Once it's nice and tight, pull your finger off. Same thing on that side. Just attaching the antenna here. Thumbnail's nice for that. Never trim your nails, kids. Never know when you're gonna need to lock an antenna onto a retro gem. Alright, this part. So you gotta get this big nut on here, that's what she said, and then you want to tin it up. So this tip's definitely not optimal. Probably gotta dial up the temps to like 350, 400 for this one, because this is just going to be absorbing all the heat. So dial up your temps when you're trying to get solder flowing on these nuts like this. There we go. That'll do. So the idea here is you plug everything in, you hook everything up, and then you unscrew it and then kind of lift up the retro gem kit, and then you gotta lock that nut onto a ground plane on the PS1. And I don't believe I got that footage. You'll see what I'm talking about in a second. Yeah, we're screwing everything in. It's pretty much finishing the install, but we need to adhere that nut to the motherboard. The best way I did it, or like the way I found that worked really well, like with getting that to snap onto the board nice and easy, it's just on top I use a big fat kind of like horseshoe looking or a horse hoof looking tip I have here, that Helder recommended. Fucking really cool tip. Didn't get the footage, so next time, follow me on Twitter. Next time I do one of these, I'll just post footage of locking that nut on the board with that big ass fat tip. It worked nicely. Alright, so yeah, this is getting everything in position and removing the screw. So the nut's not locked to the board yet. We're removing the screw and just hoping the nut doesn't shift around, because the idea here is you lift it up and then that nut is where you need it to be. I think you could just, once you know where it goes, you can just eyeball it well, not have to do all this, and then adjust it if need be. It's right about there. A big fat tip, just touch it to the top, and the solder flows, it snaps in nice and easy. Missed getting the footage, my apologies, but that's should look a little something like that. Right, it's locked in. We still need to bridge this clock point here, so we did do the clock mod. So if your jumpers aren't right, you're probably going to get no signal. That's what I was getting, and like a faster pulse on the retro gem. If you get something like that, I was troubleshooting for quite a while. It's the jumper pads for sure. And there it is. It's in there. Got the antenna mounted. Looking good. And here we go. Booting her up. And again, we've got that jerky screen going on. That's a basic edition problems here from Bob Deinterlacing. So your results may vary. My Elgato, for every one of these basic edition retro gems, it's got that up and down vertical jerking due to the deinterlacing. So in order to test, we need to boot an FMV like this. So I like testing with Silent Hill majority of the time. And once the FMV starts rolling, we can actually run the debug test to make sure all of our joints are nice. So it's L1, R1, right, and circle. Pull up the menu here. We go to System, we go Debug, Self-Test, and boom, all hearts. So you know, test it a couple times, just hit R1, resets it. Should get all hearts. If you don't, you gotta get back in there and you gotta touch up some joints, but we're golden. Silent Hill is looking nice, even in the basic edition mode. But yeah, you might want to definitely consider upgrading if you're planning on just running this straight to a TV, straight to a capture card. If you have an external scaler though, that might be the move. That's how I'm planning on doing it, is running this into my Tink 5X as well as the rest of these HDMI devices. I think that might be the move, or even the 4K devices, the Morph or the Tink 4K that's coming out, so we shall see. But anyways, that's the install, dudes. Leave a comment if you have any questions. Thanks for hanging around. Hope this helps somebody, and I'll see you on the next one.